I craved him before I even knew his name. Not him, exactly, but the idea of him. The idea of someone, anyone, seeing me as a woman again. Not a wife, not a mother. A woman who wanted, who burned. I'm Mary Toner. I'm 45. And I did something I shouldn't have. With a man who came to fix my sink. But before you judge me, please, let me tell you what it's like to starve for touch in a house full of silence. Let me show you what it means to be wanted again. Because this isn't just about sex. It's about waking up after years of being numb. So, here's my story of how it happened. And why, even now, I don't regret a single second of it. It began with a sound. Subtle, persistent. The slow, rhythmic drip of water under the kitchen sink. At first, I ignored it. Just another little thing waiting to be fixed. Like the growing pile of mail on the table. Like the way my husband stopped kissing me goodnight. Just another silence we both had gotten used to. But that leak? It was different. It was constant, unavoidable, like a whisper that refused to be ignored. By the third night, it wasn't just the faucet making noise. It was something inside me, a restlessness, a tension I hadn't felt in years, tight between my thighs, crawling beneath my skin. My husband, Mark, muttered that he'd fix it over the weekend, but I knew he wouldn't. Just like I knew he hadn't noticed the new robe I wore to bed last week. Or the way I lingered beside him, hoping he'd reach for me. He never did. So I picked up my phone and looked for a plumber. I didn't expect to care who showed up, but then I opened the door, and there he was. His name was Aiden. He wore a dark navy shirt, sleeves rolled up, forearms tanned and strong. There was a trace of engine grease on his jeans, and his eyes, hazel, steady, met mine without apology. "Mary?" he asked, smiling politely. I nodded, suddenly aware of how thin my t-shirt was beneath the morning light. He knelt under the sink, muttering softly to himself as he worked. I stood behind him, pretending to tidy the counter, though I was doing anything but. The way his body moved, slow, deliberate, confident. The stretch of fabric over his shoulders, the sound of his breath. I could feel the warmth gathering in my chest, trickling lower. It caught me off guard. I hadn't wanted like this in years. Not since before my daughter left for college. Not since Mark stopped touching me without checking his phone first. I wasn't just watching Aiden work. I was remembering what it felt like to be desired, or at least to feel the spark of desire within myself. He looked up from under the cabinet and said, "This pipe was barely holding. You did the right thing calling early." His smile was innocent. His eyes weren't. "I'll leave my card," he added, standing and brushing his hands off on a rag. "Call if anything else starts leaking." He handed it to me. Our fingers touched, just lightly, but it sent something spiraling down my spine. I watched him walk back to his truck, the sun catching the line of his jaw. That night, I lay in bed, wide awake. Mark was asleep, breathing heavy, distant. My hand slid down beneath the sheets. I didn't stop it. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I whispered someone else's name. The faucet didn't leak again, but my body did, with need, with heat, with something so familiar and yet terrifyingly forgotten. I stood in the kitchen that morning, staring at the spotless sink, listening for a sound I knew I wouldn't hear. There was no drip, no excuse, but I picked up his card anyway. My fingers traced the edge like it was a secret I wasn't supposed to touch. I told myself I had a reason. "The water pressure's low," I said when I called. I made it sound casual, even annoyed, but inside, I was anything but. He arrived that afternoon. Same smile, same quiet presence, same jeans that sat just right on his hips. He didn't ask many questions. Just nodded, grabbed his tools, and got to work in the hallway bathroom. This time, I didn't hover nearby pretending to clean. I sat on the edge of the tub, watching him work. Our knees brushed once. Neither of us moved away. I asked about his day. He said he'd just come from a job where a woman's cat got stuck behind a dryer. I laughed, too loudly. He grinned. It's nice hearing someone laugh like that. I felt my cheeks flush. I don't laugh much these days. Why not? He asked. I looked down at my hands. I guess I forgot how. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was thick, heavy, charged. He looked at me for a beat too long. His eyes weren't hungry. They were curious, searching, seeing. No one had looked at me like that in years. When he stood to grab another tool from his bag, our arms brushed. His skin against mine. Warm, firm, real. I didn't flinch. Neither did he. I think the line's fine, he said after another moment, though we both knew it had never been broken. He stood. I followed him to the front door. And that's when it happened. He handed me his card again. Same card, same gesture, but this time, when our fingers met, they lingered. Just a second longer. A second that said everything we weren't allowed to say. As he turned to leave, he looked back. Call me if anything changes, he said. Pressure can be tricky. You don't always notice it until something bursts. I nodded, heart pounding, throat dry. That night, I opened the bedroom window to feel the breeze on my skin. I let my robe slip off my shoulders, alone in the dark. I touched the curve of my hip, the center of my chest, the place between my thighs. And I didn't feel shame. I felt awake, because even though the pipes in my house were fine, something inside me had already cracked. It was a Wednesday. Rain tapped gently against the windows. The house felt colder than usual, or maybe it was just the silence pressing in on me again. Mark had left early for a work conference out of town. He hadn't kissed me goodbye. I stood in the guest bathroom staring at the mirror, watching the water bead along the edge of the sink, and I imagined his hands there. Aiden's. Not fixing, not repairing, just touching. I picked up my phone. No leak, no excuse, just 4 words. Are you nearby today? He replied in less than a minute. Be there in 15. I changed quickly, nothing too obvious, but something soft against my skin. A light sweater that hugged my arms, jeans that still made me feel like I had shape, like I was more than duty and dinner. When I opened the door, he looked different. Or maybe I did. His hair was wet from the rain, his shirt slightly clinging to his chest. He didn't say hello. He just stepped inside. I closed the door behind him, slower than necessary. We stood there in the foyer, barely inches apart. There was tension, thick and silent, and yet somehow kind. He reached up to push his damp hair back, and his eyes met mine. Something passed between us then, something fragile, like glass, before it shatters. Want some coffee? I asked, my voice quieter than usual. Sure, he said. His smile was gentle, a little nervous. We moved to the kitchen. I poured the coffee slowly, careful not to spill. My hands shook slightly. I could feel his eyes on me. When I turned around to hand him the cup, our fingers touched. It should have stopped there, but it didn't. He didn't let go, and I didn't want him to. I looked down at our hands, his calloused thumb brushing lightly across my knuckles, and I felt the breath leave my lungs. Mary, he said softly, like he was afraid of what came next. I looked up, into eyes I didn't recognize from my husband, or from anyone for that matter. Eyes that saw me, all of me. And then I leaned in. It wasn't bold. It wasn't fast. But it was real. Our lips met barely. A brush. A question. He pulled back a little. I leaned forward again, and this time, we kissed. It wasn't fire. It was a match being struck. Slow, deliberate, full of promise. His hand found my hip. Mine slid to the side of his neck. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. I shouldn't be doing this, I whispered. He looked at me steady. Maybe not, but I'm not stopping you either. I smiled, a small, dangerous smile, because I knew now. The crack inside me had become a spark, and soon it would become a flame. Friday afternoon. The sky was a pale gray and the air felt heavy, like it knew something was about to happen. There were no pretexts this time, no fake issues with plumbing, no awkward small talk. I texted him 3 words, I want you. He didn't reply. He just showed up. When I opened the door, he didn't smile. His eyes moved over me slowly, taking in everything. The silk camisole beneath a loose cardigan, my bare legs, the way my breath was already unsteady. I stepped aside. He walked in. Neither of us said a word. We were done pretending. He dropped his bag at the door. My hands found his shirt, tugging him close. His lips met mine, hungry, open, deep. I gasped into his mouth as he pressed me gently but firmly against the wall, one hand cupping the back of my neck, the other gripping my waist. Everything in me screamed yes. His touch wasn't rough, but it wasn't tentative either. It was sure, certain. Like he knew every inch of me before he ever touched me. He lifted me with surprising ease. I wrapped my legs around him instinctively, my back flush with the hallway wall. His breath was warm in my ear. I felt his heartbeat. Or maybe it was mine, echoing off his chest. We made it to the living room somehow. He laid me down on the couch like I was something delicate. But when his mouth met the hollow of my neck, I arched. I couldn't hide how much I needed this. My sweater fell from my shoulders. His hands moved beneath the camisole, slowly, reverently, sliding up over my ribs, until he cupped one breast, his thumb grazing my skin in a way that made my toes curl. I moaned softly, quiet but undeniable. He paused, looked into my eyes, like he was asking, "Are you sure?" I kissed him harder. That was my answer. We didn't undress all the way, but in every way that mattered, we were bare. He moved with patience and heat, like he didn't just want to touch me. He wanted to remember me, to let me remember myself. His hips pressed against mine, slow, grinding gently. His lips traced paths down my collarbone, along the curve of my waist. Each breath, each whisper, each heartbeat felt like a lifetime I'd been missing. And then, finally, when we melted together, when our bodies moved as one, it wasn't just sex. It was reclamation of my skin, of my breath, of my hunger. When it was over, we didn't speak. He held me, just held me. And for the first time in over a decade, I didn't feel used. I felt worshipped. He didn't come back the next day, or the day after. At first, I thought he was just giving us space. Maybe he needed time to make sense of it all. I checked my phone every morning, every night. Sometimes even in the middle of the night, the screen lighting up my face like a question I couldn't answer. No calls, no texts, no goodbye. By the end of the week, I stopped expecting the sound of his truck in the driveway, and by the next, I stopped hoping. But the ache didn't go away. It wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't even rejection. It was something more complicated, more intimate. Because what Aiden had given me wasn't a promise. He didn't offer forever. He didn't even offer tomorrow. What he gave me was a moment, a window, A mirror. He held up the version of me I had buried under grocery lists, polite smiles, and the quiet resignation of a wife who no longer expected to be kissed on the mouth. And when he left, it wasn't the absence of him that hurt most. It was the silence that followed the noise he had awakened inside me. My body still hummed with memory. Every time I passed the living room, I saw shadows of that afternoon. The place where my back arched, where my lips trembled, where my soul whispered, "I'm still here." Mark returned from his work trip that Sunday. He unpacked. He asked about the groceries. He didn't notice that I looked different. Or maybe he did. He stared at me longer than usual at dinner, as if trying to name something that had changed but didn't know what words to use. I smiled softly. I asked about his week. I didn't feel guilty. And that surprised me. Because this wasn't about betrayal. It wasn't about seeking something I didn't have. It was about remembering something I had forgotten. That I was a woman. That I could still want. Still burn. Still touch and be touched and feel everything in color again. One night, Mark reached out to touch my shoulder in bed. Not sexually, just gently. For the first time in years, I didn't pull away. Because I wasn't numb anymore. Because even though Aiden had gone, he'd left something behind. Something I hadn't had in a long time. A pulse, a spark, the memory of being fully, desperately, achingly alive. It's been 3 months. 3 months since he walked out of my life as quietly as he entered it. 3 months since I felt his breath against my neck, his hands across my skin, his eyes on my soul. And I haven't seen him since. Not at the grocery store. Not driving down the road. Not even a name that pops up by mistake on my phone. It's like he never existed. But he did. And the proof isn't in the memory of his touch. It's in the way I walk now. It's in the sway of my hips when I reach for a wine glass. It's in the way I pull my hair up and catch a glimpse of my collarbone in the mirror. It's in the quiet smile I give myself before bed. He didn't stay. But what he awakened in me did. I started painting again. Not for anyone. Not to hang on a wall. Just for me. Colors I thought had dried up poured from my fingertips. Reds, golds, deep shades of plum. Every stroke of the brush felt like reclaiming territory I forgot I owned. I bought a dress, tight at the waist, low at the back. I wore it to the farmer's market with a red lip and no apology. People looked. But more importantly, I looked back. Mark and we're not perfect. We may never be. But I touch his hand at dinner now. Sometimes he touches mine back. We talk more. Not about what was missing, but about what could return. It's slow. It's awkward. But it's something. I never told him about Aiden. Not because I was afraid, but because that story doesn't belong to him. It belongs to me. It was never about choosing someone else over my husband. It was about choosing myself. First. For the first time in years. And now, as I water the flowers by the window each morning, I feel that bloom again. Not from lust. From life. The petals of my want. The soft ache of my joy. The gentle opening of my body back to the world. Sometimes I think of Aiden. I wonder if he ever thinks of me. But I don't miss him. I miss who I became when I stopped waiting for permission to feel. Because I don't need anyone to remind me what I am anymore. I am a woman. Still. Now again. I did something I shouldn't have, but it brought me back to life. And I would do it all over again. Not for the man, but for the moment I finally remembered how to bloom. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story stirred something in you, whether it was a memory, a longing, or just a quiet breath, you're not alone. I see you, and I hope you see a part of yourself in me. Please don't forget to like this video, leave me a comment with your thoughts or your own story, and hit that subscribe button to follow the channel. Your voice matters, and your presence here means more than you know. I promise, in the next video, I'll share another story that will surprise you even more, maybe even shake you. So be sure to explore the rest of my channel where you'll find more unexpected stories just like this one. Until next time, take care of your heart, your body, and your quiet desires. I'll be waiting for you, right here.